This day in sports history. Hey, and welcome back to This Day in Sports History. Real quick, before I get started, if you're enjoying the podcast, would you do me a favor? If you're listening on Apple, how about rating the podcast 5 stars? And if you have a few extra seconds, how about a quick review? And if you're listening on Spotify, how about a 5-star rating? It's easy and it really does help. Thanks to all those who have rated it so far, and thanks for the listen today. I appreciate it more than you know. It's February 26th, and on this day in 1967, Mario Andretti won the Daytona 500. Andretti was an open-wheel guy racing in the USAC IndyCar Series. He'd won the Rookie of the Race award for his efforts in the 1965 Indy 500, starting 4th and finishing 3rd. He'd started on the pole for the 66 Indy 500. He didn't win it, but he won 18 of the 15 races on the USAC schedule that year. He'd actually raced the 66 Daytona 500, starting 39th and finishing 37th. So he had a little bit of time behind the wheel of a stock car on the banked turns of Daytona. Even though this would be his only NASCAR event of the year, Andretti had a teammate for this race, but that really wasn't to Mario's favor. Fred Lorenzen had won the 65 Daytona 500, and as Andretti said it, Lorenzen was Ford's golden boy. So if the race came down to Andretti and Lorenzen, then it was obvious who the Ford boys would want to win the race. And that's exactly what happened. First, Andretti was driving a loose race car, meaning that the back end wanted to come around on him in the turns. He found a way to wrestle it around the track and then realized that he could run a lot better if he was just out in front of everybody instead of drafting. Andretti passed race leader Joe Lund, and Lorenzen was hot on his tail. Now, they stayed 1-2 for the latter half of this race, and when they came in for their final pit stops, Andretti led, and that's when politics took over. Here's Andretti talking about what happened next.
When we came in for the last pit stop, I was first, he was second, and they let him out. They jacked my car up and they put packers on the spring, They said, oh, yeah, they're trying to help you. I didn't ask for anything, but they held me there until he was gone. And then I just, I was really upset, But I had a fast car. I caught up with him, and then I figured, well, if I pass him, I'll never shake him. But I did. I passed him, and then I said, that's all I can do.
Those packers that his pit crew put in his springs tightened up his race car. He made the adjustment in his driving style, and he went back out and he retook the lead from Lorenzen. And with 3 laps to go, the caution flag came out, and the race finished under yellow. Andretti won the Daytona 500, becoming the first foreign-born driver to win a NASCAR race. Hey, real quick, you've heard me talk a lot about the Stirling Soap Company over the past few months, and if you haven't tried out their soaps, I get it. It's not easy changing up your routine. But let me just say, if you give them a try, I'm nearly 100% certain you will have 0 regrets. They carry not only bar soap, but shave soap, liquid body soap, body lotions, beard balm, lip balm, and a lot more. Plus, there are myriad scents to choose from. Their products are made with natural ingredients and scented oils, and they are committed to being environmentally conscious. And I always get a handwritten note on my packing slip, so I know it's been checked before shipping, and it's a nice little human touch in a world that seems to be going away from that. Give Stirling Soap a try today at stirlingsoap.com. On this day in 1978, Jack Nicklaus stormed home to a win in one of the all-time great finishes in a PGA Tour event. This was the now defunct Jackie Gleason Inverrary Classic in Lauderhill, Florida. Nicklaus started his rampage when he chipped in from 80 feet away for birdie on the 14th. He rolled in a 12-footer for another birdie at 15. On the 16th, he chipped in again from just off the green for his 3rd straight birdie. He followed that up on the 17th with a 20-foot birdie putt, and then capped it all off on the final hole with a 9-iron dagger to 4 feet and rolled that in for his 5th straight birdie. Hale Irwin called it the finest golf he'd ever witnessed, adding he birdied 16 and walked across the water to the 17th tee. It was Nicklaus's 65th PGA Tour title, on his way to a career total of 73. On this day in 1946, Babe Ruth was released by the New York Yankees and quickly signed with the Boston Braves. Babe Ruth had just turned 40 3 weeks earlier, and he was definitely on the tail end of his career, but the Boston Braves thought that he had a few more years in the tank. In his 15th and final season with the New York Yankees, the Babe hit 22 home runs, which was his lowest tally since he was back pitching for the Red Sox, and still, he was an attractive get for the Braves. Despite losing to Ruth and the Yankees relentlessly over the past decade and a half, American League managers like Connie Mack lamented the loss of Ruth to the National League. National League managers and owners were excited. Ruth meant people coming through the turnstiles in ballparks that he had never played in. And it was a huge story in papers the next day. Ruth's release and quick signing wiped other world news of the day off the front page. The Braves signed Ruth to a 3-year deal to be an assistant manager to Bill McKechnie, a vice president in the front office, and also as a player. Now, you may be asking yourself, wait, Ruth played with the Boston Braves? I don't remember that. Well, that's probably because he didn't last very long, and the time he spent there did not go very well. He only played 28 games, hitting 181 with 6 homers in that time. 3 of those came in his second-to-last game. He also clashed with the front office about his role with the team. On May 30th, he played his final game with the Braves, having never managed the team in his short stint. Hey, I needed to call a quick timeout to let you know that we're giving away a $50 gift card to Homefield Apparel. Have a favorite college sports team? Of course you do. You're listening to a sports podcast. Well, Homefield Apparel has all the great gear so you can support your team in style. Jerseys, hoodies, hats, and a whole lot more are available in your team's colors and insignias. So go to sportshistorynetwork.com/giveaways for your chance at a $50 gift card to Homefield Apparel. I've also put a link in the show notes. Now, let's get back out there. We've got more of this episode to do. On this day in 1985, Italian skier Leonardo David died after lying comatose for nearly 6 years. It's hard to project how promising a young athlete's career would have been if only they'd been given the chance. There are many who had enormous potential that had the opportunity, but then never lived up to those expectations. Well, for Leonardo David, he was one of those the sky is the limit kind of athletes. As an 18-year-old, many were projecting him to be the future of Italian skiing. In 1978, he competed in the European Cup and he won slalom and overall titles. In a World Cup race in Oslo, he beat Phil Mayer and Ingemar Stenmark to take the top prize, the only one that he ever competed in. Now, in '79, he stood on the podium 4 times and he had 10 top 10 finishes. And he had his eyes on the 1980 Lake Placid Olympics, which is where he was competing in a pre-Olympic event on March 3, 1979. He had nearly navigated the entire course when he took a fall just a few yards from the finish line. He regained his feet, skied across the line, and then collapsed again, and he slipped into a coma. David had fallen in another race 2 weeks prior to this one, and since that point had complained to friends and family that he had horrible headaches. He'd actually been examined by a few doctors, including a neurosurgeon, who cleared him to compete. David remained in a coma while his parents took him to numerous specialists around the world, hoping that one of them could find a cure. None ever did, and he never regained consciousness. On this day, 6 days prior to the 6th anniversary of his injury, Leonardo David suffered a heart attack and died. He was 24 years old. On this day in 1989, Tom Landry was fired as the head coach of the Dallas Cowboys. After 29 seasons of walking the sidelines in his trademark fedora, winning 2 Super Bowls and 60% of his games in that span, Landry was shown the door. His firing came the day after Jerry Jones bought the team, taking over as general manager in the process. And time now for today's That's Got Nothing to Do with Sports fun fact. Bet you can't eat just one, and I'm not talking about potato chips here. I'm talking about spaghetti noodles. If you can pull off the feat of eating just one strand of spaghetti, then you can use the singular spaghetto. But you will probably be hungry for the rest of the evening. This has been an original Thrive Suite production.